The Great River Valley area of Princeton and LeClaire has always been a friendly place to live. Farmers and townsfolk alike worked hard to build a better future for their families and the generations to come. It was in this setting that a group of concerned farmers and businessmen pooled their resources to help their community grow by founding their own local bank. As they gathered together upstairs in the J.D. Dennis building in March 1908 to cast their votes, there was one thing on their minds: the future security of their families. That was the day the Farmers Savings Bank of Princeton was born. By the early 1920s, area farmers, businesses, and the bank were experiencing substantial success. Folks from all over the valley soon became customers and relied on the Farmers Savings Bank of Princeton as a trusted partner in their future. Behind the scenes, there was an active board of directors, men who really understood the needs of local farmers. That's because they lived it every day, making their living farming their own fields.
I know my dad borrowed money from the bank. Money that they would borrow for machinery and seeds and all the other things that were necessary at that time. And if it hadn't been for the bank, I would surmise that most of them wouldn't be around, you know, couldn't have survived.
Daily operations of the bank were entrusted to two likable, bright young men, the Suter brothers, Charlie and Zach. The Suters were a well-known family in the Princeton-LeClaire area.
And Zach Sr. was a master and pilot of at least two boats on the Mississippi that ran by Princeton-LeClaire. These were called packet boats. One was the Verney Swain and the other was the Eclipse. And they ran from the Davenport, Rock Island area to Fulton, Illinois and back. But the story my father told me was that his father, Zach Sr., used to take Zach Jr. and my Uncle Charlie in the pilot house of the Verney Swain or the Eclipse. He made up flashcards and the boys learned mathematics.
The Suter boys learned the banking business from the bottom up and were quite good at it. The bank's net worth grew quickly over the next few years. It was then that Charlie Suter left the Farmers Savings Bank, moving west to start a career in land development. A very capable young Zach Suter stepped right into his brother's shoes, being appointed head cashier in 1917. Everybody in town liked Zach. He was friendly and had a fine reputation for being honest, understanding, and quite generous with good financial advice.
I remember Zach Suter faintly, but my dad had an awful lot of conversations about him, and the first farm that my dad bought, Zach Suter took him up to Clinton. My dad didn't even have a car. He was working for 35 cents an hour. Zach Suter said, "George, we got to go up to Clinton and buy that farm tonight because somebody else is going to buy it tomorrow." He took my dad up to Clinton after work and they bought the first farm that my dad bought. 35 cents an hour, 10 hours a day. Dad didn't have no money. And Zach took care of him.
Area farmers and local businesses were enjoying the benefits of having a bank right in town. The money folks earned and saved stayed right in the community, providing working capital for expanding family farms and a safe place for businessmen to deposit their daily receipts.
Zach Suter was a friend to everybody. He was involved in everything and took an interest in the town.
The good times, though, came to an abrupt end in 1929 with the crash of the stock market and the closing of hundreds of banks across the country. People were upset and frightened. Concerned about the safety of their money, deposits at the Farmer Savings Bank dropped 50%.
This had to be about 1933, and I walked down to the bank from school, and I saw many people around the back room of the bank, and I saw my father standing on the table asking people to please have faith and trust in him because their bank was in good shape and he was not going to let anything happen to any bit of their money if they had trust and faith in him and leave their money in the bank, which they did. But that was a very unique situation. Then a few days later, my father and two other gentlemen from the bank drove to Des Moines to the banking department and showed them the books, and the books were completely examined, and the state bank examiner said, your bank can stay open. You are strong and you're going to be in good shape and just, you do not have to close. I believe that was the only bank in Scott County.
Having a good solid bank gave you a lot of security so you could sleep at night good, that we was able to make plans for the future.
The trust folks put in Zach Suter was well-founded. The Farmers Savings Bank not only stayed open through the Depression years, even opened a branch bank downriver in LeClaire in 1937. At the heart of Zach Suter's desire to keep the bank solvent during the Depression was a downright stubborn determination that the families in his community didn't lose one dime of their hard-earned money on his watch.
Very personally concerned about every individual and their money and their well-being. And this helped the bank to grow.
The needs of the farmers and businesses in the Great River Road area grew rapidly. New farming techniques promised to expand family farm production threefold. Zach Suter and the Farmers Bank was more than ready for the challenge. Sadly, though, Zach fell ill and died suddenly in 1948. The man who saw their families through the Depression and kept the Farmers Savings Bank so strong for so many years was gone. What would happen to the bank? Who could handle such a large responsibility? It was then that Glenn Suter stepped forward and took the helm of the Farmers Savings Banks. Bank customers were anxious to see if this tall, slender young man they had known since he was a boy could live up to the heritage left by his father.
When I was 26 and my father died, and I became the managing officer of the bank, people would come in and want to borrow money, and they'd look at me because I was awfully young, and they'd give me their question and what they wanted to borrow. And I remember I used to go to the vault in our old bank building and close the door and just stand and write down the pros and cons and think this out and what I needed to do to make this happen.
From 1958 to 1968, the Farmers Savings Bank of Princeton saw an unprecedented 50% growth. In 1966, with the blessing and helpful hand of the Board of Directors of the Farmers Savings Bank, Glenn and his trusted team of employees organized and launched the LeClaire State Bank. This unique structure brought with it the most modern banking services the Great River Road area had seen since the Farmers Savings Bank opened the doors of its new building way back in 1914. When his son Steve joined the bank, Glenn and Steve continued to expand the financial service goal of the banks from 1976 through 1986 to what some thought impossible for small independent community banks.
My great-grandfather, John Schaff, was one of the first founders in the bank, Farmer Savings Bank. It's now the Great River Bank in Princeton. And they needed operating capital back in the early 1900s, just as we do today in the late 1900s, for crop expenses and to buy cattle and buy hogs. And We're the fourth generation, my brother and I, to use the Great River Bank. And we like the Great River Bank because it's a friendly place to do banking. We know everybody there on a first-name basis.
I love working with the people. I feel, I'm an only child, I feel like they're all family, many of them, you know, the old timers, and learned a lot from them and have just enjoyed the customer contact.
Well, dealing with a small town bank is a lot different than a large bank, because here you're a name, you're a person, you're not just a number. And there are times when I call the bank and I don't even have to tell them who I am. They just know me by my voice.
Always the bigger banks, you were sort of a number. We're in here, you walked in and you said, "Good morning, Mr. Suter." You know, you talked, you knew everybody. I think they like that.
I think we have a very competent, highly trained staff that is doing a good job at serving people in a personal manner. They do not have to worry about us referring their questions to another location. Whereas here we have the staff that is at their service 6 days a week to look up problems and answer questions for them. I think our depositors who have been here for generations can see that their money is being poured back into the local community. Our bank has been instrumental in early donations to the Mississippi Valley Welcome Center. We've also had a number of projects up in the Welcome Center area, and our bank is a purchaser of various municipal bonds that have gone to finance the infrastructure, the construction of streets and sewers and roads on the Welcome Center Hill.
In 1985, Princeton, Iowa welcomed a stunning new Farmer Savings Bank building, honoring the riverboat heritage of the Suter family. In 1996 came an idea that would crown the banking services achievements of the Suter family and area farmers. Steve Suter requested that the board of directors approve a merger of the banks and a unique name change. Today, Great River Bank and Trust, with locations in Princeton and LeClaire, is serving a whole new generation of area farmers, businesses, and Great River Road area residents. Great River Bank and Trust, 90 years and growing strong.
We're the banks on the Mississippi, right where the river bends. Since 1908, serving farmers and business friends. Now we're building on the future with the heritage of our past, growing to serve you better as the Great River Bank. Great River Bank and Trust, where the Mississippi bends. We're still the same good people, we're still your family friend. Now we're building on the future with the heritage of our past, growing to serve you better